Oh hey, it's a model rocket kit. Today, I'll show you guys how to get started in model rocketry by building a traditional model rocket. So here we have everything that's in the kit. Most important part, the manual. Definitely read it or else, you don't know what to do. And then there's small parts for the rocket. This is a relatively small rocket. And it comes with a launch pad, so you can launch it, blast plate, so you don't start a fire in the grass, and a launch controller, because in model rocketry, it's not fireworks. You don't set it off with a grill lighter. That's unsafe and unprofessional. So, well, let's start with the rocket first. Okay, so this is relatively small rocket, so there's only a few basic parts, unlike some bigger rockets like high power rocketry that you would normally see. This is what we call a fin can. So this is actually this is the Estes Alpha is like an old model. It's a very classic model rocket, but this is the Alpha 3, which means it's like modernized. So in like cheap and modern small model rockets, they usually use a fin can, which basically combines the fins of the model rocket and the motor mount. Well, the motor mount is where you put in the motor together into one unit. And then this is the nose cone, and it's there for aerodynamic purposes. You don't want a flat nose cone. And then this is the main body frame, or we call body tube. Parachute, very important. You don't want it to crash. This is not a missile. And this is some spare parts. Well, not spare parts. These are some other very important parts. This is the tube. The motor tube is where it goes in right here. These are adapter rings and motor stop rings. These are for retaining the motor and piecing different parts of the rocket together. So just some green rings. This is what we call an engine hook, because the engine on the motor on the top has a small black powder charge that will ignite after the motor burns out. Therefore, the explosion of the black powder charge will split the rocket in half, therefore releasing the parachute. And Newton's third law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Therefore, the motor is going to fly the same way as well when the parachute flies forward. Therefore, you need a small hook to keep it not flying out. You don't want to ditch a spent motor everywhere. And a piece of elastic shock cord. Shock cord is the cord that connects the rocket to the parachute. And the reason why it's elastic, because when the parachute first opens up, there's a big force because it like instantly opens up, it instantly blows up, therefore creating a big stress on the entire rocket body frame. So you want it to be elastic so it can absorb some of the stress and doesn't just pull itself off of the rocket. And this is a very tiny screw eye, and this is how you will be attaching the shock cord. This is you'll mount this onto the rocket body frame, and you'll attach the shock cord to here, and the shock cord of course attaches to the parachute. And okay, so this is the motor we'll be using. It is a B6-6 black powder motor. So what the B means, B is the class, basically means how it represents how powerful the motor will be. 6 means the max average thrust in newtons. And the -6 means, the other 6 means 6 seconds, means how long after burnout the delay charge will burn before it sets off the black powder charge. So we'll be using this. This is a pretty good small model rocket engine. And inside we have some old model rocket igniter. These igniters are so old, they're from like the 60s or something, because we don't use this kind of, nobody in high power rocketry, nobody used these are. And we have the igniters, which if you Normally, you just pass electricity through it, it'll heat up, and it will create, it will just ignite the motor. And then we have the engine plug, which you plug this in to the motor after you load the igniter in to not let it fall out. Of course, we have the motor. This is just a thick cardboard tube. And yes, somehow cardboard can resist the burning of black powder. Don't ask me why. And you just, normally if you're at launch, you just stick this in. I'm not going to do it now. I don't want to explode. And you put the cap in and then you're done. Just to show in comparison, this is the motor we use. This is a F-class motor. And it's actually a reloadable motor, which means this is a metal casing. And every time you burn it, you burn the charge, but then you just load a new charge in. You like wash the casing and stuff. But this is a single-use motor, so you have to throw away the entire thing because obviously cardboard is not going to last more than once. And yeah, this motor is about like 10 times to 8 to 10 times more powerful than this thing, because it also uses a completely different it burns a completely different chemical, so it's like way more powerful. So okay, with all traditional rockets comes in a big manual, of course, and it tells you the precise measurement of where you got to make the cuts and where you got to glue everything, which is extremely annoying, but gotta do what you gotta do. So first, I'll start out by taking a pencil, and instead of a ruler, I'll use a fancy digital caliper because I'm lazy, and I will just measure everything. Okay, I'll next take. Usually you use it with a smaller hobby knife, but since our team doesn't really do traditional rocketry anymore, this is all I have, box cutter. Yeah, you gotta deal with it. And I have to make a cut for the slot for the engine hook to go in, because there's like a tiny spot that bends up there, so you're supposed to put that inside of the paper body tube with a cut, and then it just won't push out because it's stuck in there. So now I made a cut, and I just put this in and it goes in there. Now comes the next part, the most important part of the entire assembly process, gluing stuff. And with glue, there's like a billion types of glue that you can choose. There's we have wood glue, we have epoxy, and then you have spray glue, weird dark magic, and then you have this rock epoxy that we used to use for like strong stuff. They have more epoxy that takes longer time to cure. But in general, wood glue is the best option for this type of rocket because everything here is, aside from the plastic, is wood. So this is just a piece of cardboard which is from wood. And what wood glue does compared to other glue is that because all these stuff is wood-based, they're permeable, which means the glue it's like a sponge, it absorbs into the material. Therefore, it will create a tighter bond compared to all other types of glue, which doesn't permeate into the actual material. So I've applied some wood glue onto this, and we're going to put this ring here, and it has a slot cut into it, so it doesn't interfere with this engine hook. And the purpose of this is to prevent the motor prevent this entire assembly from sliding forward. You don't want it to shoot through the rocket. That's no good. So you just slide it in, and it doesn't fit in very tight, but you just leave it in there and wait for the wood glue to dry. Now you take this piece of, they call it, I think this is a piece of plastic, and you just slide it in. Well, actually, you put some glue on this, so it glues on there. It's just for holding the hook down. So actually, let me just show real quick what I've done here. This is the motor mount. And this is where the motor goes in. Even though it's not really dried yet, but you can see the motor fits in right about, okay. Fits in right in here. And this clip is like a little spring. It holds it right in there. right in place, so it doesn't, it's like, so it doesn't go out. If it go out right now, I can't pull it out. It's snug in there, and you lift the thing up, and then you can take it out. Next step is to assemble they call it a fin mount. This is this is just a fin can. Now this has kind of dried, we're gonna just slide this in and glue it together. Now that we have glued the launch lug, we just attach the fin assembly onto this main body frame. Okay, so now we're done with gluing that part. Now we install the parachute. Start out with the shock cord. Oh, here comes what I think is like the most sketch part of traditional modern rocketry. So the mount for the parachute is made out of paper. In fact, it's cut straight from this piece of paper, the manual. So they're telling you to cut this piece of paper straight out. Okay, next step, while we're waiting for this assembly to dry, we put in the screw eye. This is where the shock cord goes. Well, actually, this is where the shock cord goes, because, the rocket splits in half during ejection. You want to keep both parts, right? So this part is has the shock cord glued in, but this part is just a screw eye, and you're gonna just put the shock cord through this. So the entire thing will be tethered together during descent under the parachute. Simply just screw the screws through the plastic, and you're done. Now, of course, you open up your little parachute made out of plastic. On our rocket, our parachute is made of nylon because it's way heavier, but rocket this small, that's barely like a few ounces. Just use a tiny parachute. So cute. Now just bundle your parachute together. This is what we call shroud lines. Just the lines that makes up the parachute. And you put it through the tiny screw eye, and you just tie a knot. And then you're done with that part. And we're like almost done with this entire rocket, in fact. Okay, now we're done with that step. Let's tie the shock. The glue dries pretty much dry. So let's tie the shock cord through this little hole as well. They call for a double knot. Okay, now the entire rocket is assembled, and you just put in the motor, and you're ready to launch.
Good to go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.